when an alert comes in, usually you have lots and lots of tools at your disposal to go and investigate the alert. You might have something sitting in a data lake. You might have something sitting in your EDR system. So just within those two capacities, now I have to know how to write a query against my data lake, and then I have to extract that out, and then I have to know how to write a query against my EDR system, and now I got to connect these two. We're just at 2 right now. Average organization has like 45 plus security technologies and tooling, so the tool is in the way in the sense that now I have to know all the schemas, I have to know where all the data sits, where the different types of data sits, and then I have to integrate the results that I'm getting.
And we are here at RSAC 2025, and joining me, I feel like it's old home week. Nice to speak once again with Monzy Merza. Today you are with Crogl. You're the CEO and co-founder of that company. We spoke, of course, in your past. You were with Splunk for many, many years. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back. Good to see you.
So let's start off, just for folks who may not be familiar with the new company, how do you describe it?
Crogl works on tickets. It's an autonomous analyst. It's a knowledge engine that investigates alerts, executes threat hunts, and documents all of its work. So when you have thousands of alerts coming in, you need someone or something to look at those alerts and operate on them so the analysts can really focus on things that are important.
Well, take me through the journey here. I mean, as you and your colleagues were thinking about starting this up, and is this a thing? Would this work? What was the problem that you thought you could solve? What was the itch that you thought you could scratch?
So I was an executive at Databricks for many years, and then I had this idea to do something. So instead of starting a company, I actually went and worked for one of the largest banks in the world. And I really wanted to feel the pain of security operators, because I thought surely, by 2023, these problems have been resolved. And 2 big surprises, which caused us to really focus Crogl in the way that we did. The first big one was, analysts told us over and over again that the tools were in their way. And leaders said, well, I don't have enough people. So we found that's an interesting juxtaposition, and we said, what if we created a product that would make every security analyst as effective as the entire team? Now, for the analysts listening in the room, right, they know that's a ridiculous proposition. But then the question is, what would have to happen? So that was the nexus point to start to create Crogl, to say, what would we have to build to really enable and empower the analysts to really exercise their intuition and be as good as they want to be without creating a tool that actually impedes them. And that's how it started. We started to work on Crogl, and we started 2 years ago.
Well, so help us understand, when you say the tool's getting in the way for the analysts, what does that look like day to day? What's that frustration there?
Yeah, so I learned this firsthand because I went into a very sophisticated organization as an analyst. So when an alert comes in, usually you have lots and lots of tools at your disposal to go and investigate the alert. You might have something sitting in a data lake. You might have something sitting in your EDR system. So just within those 2 capacities, now I have to know how to write a query against my data lake, and then I have to extract that out, and then I have to know how to write a query against my EDR system, and now I got to connect these 2. We're just at 2 right now. Average organization has like 45 plus security technologies and tooling, so the tool is in the way in the sense that now I have to know all the schemas, I have to know where all the data sits, where the different types of data sits, and then I have to integrate the results that I'm getting. Even though I know what to do, I know how to investigate a malware alert, but what I can't remember as a human is, where is the data? Where do I go first? Where do I go next? How do I write the query? And so the tools are actually getting in my way to do my job.
Okay, and so what does the other side of that look like? What sort of things are you all providing to get rid of those barriers?
So we sat down and we said, okay, if we want to make every analyst as effective as the entire team, what laws of physics would we have to break? So the first one, we said, okay, if you really want to do this, you have to have a system that says you don't have to normalize your schema. Because every analysis system says you have to normalize your schema, and then you can start to work on it. But we know from experience from all these prior companies that nobody's data is normalized across, even within one tool, let alone across multiple data lakes. And so that was number one. So we said, okay, we have to build a system that does it. So we built a knowledge graph that creates a semantic layer on top of the enterprise data lakes. So that if something is called source IP over here or sashimi over there, it doesn't matter. We can still help the analyst execute that query without having to write the query language for those two systems, because we now have understanding. The second thing that we focused on was process. So first is a data problem, the second is a process problem. What do analysts know? Well, they know what to do, but they want it to be repeatable, because Bob wants to share his work with Alice, and between the two of them as a team, they do better work. So create a mechanism to learn a process from Bob's work and learn a process from Alice's work, such that when the third person comes in, they can benefit from the work of those two people. So data and process, and those are the two building blocks on which the whole system that we created is built.
So does that mean that each of those people can customize to their own needs, their own preferences, but then there's still a kind of I like to do things one way, you like to do the other, we can do that, but when it's time for us to exchange, it gets translated to each other's language?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. What we're really doing is we're shrinking that collaboration friction.
Okay.
Because how do people collaborate today? Well, I have to sit in a room, and you have to sit in the same room with me, or we have to get a long Slack meeting, or we have to do something, right? But as a person, what do I really want to do? I want my work to be sensitized from your work, because I value your work as a team member. And so, yeah, you do your work your way, I do my work my way, but my work is now sensitized from your work, and that's what the knowledge engine is doing for the users. And so when alerts comes in, when it automatically responds to an alert, it's taking the knowledge from my work and your work, and then executing against that. And then we can take that individually one step further to the things that the machine can't do.
Let's shift gears from the analyst to the CISO. How is this sort of thing a lifestyle upgrade for the CISO?
Oh, yeah, so I think from a CISO point of view, when I talk to CISOs and our customers, they are telling us their biggest challenge is they're looking at a bandwidth problem. And what they mean by that is that yesterday, let's say, before the emergence of AI in the general context, they had, let's say, 1,000 users or 5,000 users in their organization. And so the security teams were doing work to protect those 5,000 users or those 20,000 customers. Now that AI is a part of the equation, the amount of work that any given user can do, or the amount of expectation and work that any given customer is doing, has increased by a very large order of magnitude. So it's almost analogous to what they're saying is, I have 10 times more customers, I have 10 times more users. So now I have to protect in that environment. And these CISOs were already encumbered by not being able to respond to alerts. I mean, the thousands of alerts that they were receiving before. Now all of a sudden there's a whole bunch more. So now they have this bandwidth issue of how do I respond to this increase? Their budgets are not increasing, but they want to respond to this. So they're saying, well, I need something to actually do the job. So they're like, when I go and talk to them, they're like, don't talk to me about AI. That's fine. You have AI, everybody has AI, it's all good. Don't talk to me about AI. Talk to me, what are you actually going to do? And so our mantra is very simple. Crogl works on tickets. And so that the analyst can focus on things that are really important, and the work can actually be done for you. And so it's that bandwidth issue. Now, why is that a bigger, broader issue? So when I ask them, okay, so what are your choices then? So they're telling us their choices are, one, well, I could try to build this capability in-house. And they understand if they're in a manufacturing business or the government agency, their job is not to build products and maintain products over their life cycle. They're like, well, I tried. And then I asked them, well, why are you trying this by yourself? And they say, well, my SIM experiment failed, or my SOAR experiment failed. I'm not really trusting the industry to see the path forward, so I'm going to do this on my own because I haven't seen anything that actually works. And then the second part of that is, okay, well, then why don't you go do it? And they say, no, we don't really want to do it. We need a system to do this for us. Okay, well, what do you need? And that's where we got the interest of them telling us, we need a system that appreciates the fact that data is not normalized, and we need a system that creates reproducible outcomes, that is rooted and anchored in processes. And so that's what we're building.
You mentioned a couple of times the benefit of separating yourself from the need to have the data normalized. Can we dig into that a little bit?
Yes.
Explain that to me.
So as an analyst, when I go, if I'm working on something, I have to touch lots and lots of systems. Each system has a different schema, and a different query language. And so I have to learn that, and I have to memorize that. And so the conventional wisdom has always been, whether you look, anyone who's selling a data lake or has a data lake product says, well, just put all your data in this one data lake. Now, what we are experiencing now is that's not true. People are living in cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid. So that's the problem statement. So now the question is, okay, how are you going to learn this? So we built a system that essentially builds this knowledge graph across all these different data lakes. And the way we do that is we're essentially emulating the way the analysts work. Because the analyst doesn't say, oh, data's not normalized, sorry, can't work here anymore.
Right.
They work through the problem. And so we talk to tons and tons of analysts, say, how do you work through the problem? And so they explain to us, and we essentially patent this ability now, and we have a patent for this, to go in and connect to a system and learn what kind of data is in that system, and learn how that data is related to another data set in another system. And so we're creating this semantic layer of knowledge across, so that the analyst now doesn't have to remember anything.
I see. So this is work that the analysts were already doing, maybe without even realizing it, all of these, adapting to all these different systems, so you take that burden off of them.
Yes.
And so they can cross-talk. Yeah. That's really interesting. Well, it is RSA, it is 2025. You said the magic word, AI.
Hopefully I didn't say it too many times.
No, right? Is there an AI component that folks should know about?
Yes. I think the biggest thing that we learned as we started the company is we like to call it a compound AI system. There is no singular sort of mechanism here. So as an example, our technology uses an LLM. We use a retrieval augmented generation capability. We have an agentic workflow. We even use a relational database. And so AI is not just like a singular entity. It is a combination of things working together to produce an outcome. In our case, the outcome being work on tickets in a responsible way, such that it's documented, it is inspectable, and it is auditable. And that's really the thing around AI that is most important for, I think, most people to understand. And I think the other piece, which a lot of folks are not talking about, which I think we are we're proving that to be true, which is not conventional wisdom, is, so for example, we have a customer today that's running Crogl in an internet disconnected environment. Fully functional. So it's a self-contained, customer-managed system. So even that is possible, just like, so there's two big physics things that we broke, right? The first thing we broke was, oh, you don't have to normalize your data. How dare you even say that out loud, right? But yes, you don't have to normalize your data. There's a way to solve that problem and solve outcomes. The other one was, there's no way that you can package this system up, this compound AI system up, to make it customer managed and fully private and completely in the customer's control. So we solved that problem. So it's possible to do it. We have customers who are using it. And so that's the thing I think about AI that I think it would be really cool for more people to understand.
How much is this technology a productivity tool? How much is it a user satisfaction tool? In other words, you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I think so. So I'll just tell you what the users are saying back to us in terms of their feedback.
Okay, sure.
The productivity piece is very important. Yes, you can sort of derive that into sort of a workflow problem. There's a workflow issue here. An alert comes in, somebody has to investigate, tickets had to get to closure with some degree of satisfaction and some degree of provability, so you can tell an auditor I did my work. So that's cool, you're just doing your job. The next thing is, all right, so you can do that, but how do we take security operations to the next level? Because we realize, as ex-practitioners, is that the human is really the most valuable component of the operation. And what the human can derive and connect, that system doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it will for a good long time. Mm-hmm. So the satisfaction comes in two ways. The way Crogl is built, we're taking what Bob has learned and sensitizing Alice's work with that. And we're taking what Alice is doing and sensitizing Bob's work with that. And so we're creating this camaraderie in the team where instead of saying, oh, you did a bad job, now it's completely flipped. It's like, I am a contributor to my colleague's work. And now, because it's auditable, every little thing you do in the system, you can take credit for, because you can show, this is what I did, and this is how I impacted positively the rest of my team. And so now we've completely flipped that model of where before it was like, oh, you SOC analyst, you missed something, to, oh, good job looking into that, because people are not sitting there saying, SOC analysts work their butts off, right? But they don't have the time to just constantly document everything that they're doing. So now we've created a system that, one, they can exercise their intuition, and second, the documentation is just happening for them. So now they get to take credit, they get to become heroes. I'll give you an example from a customer. A customer called and said, Monzy, you're not charging enough for this thing. And I said, well, that's music to my ears, but tell me more.
Go on.
And they said, well, we have an analyst who used Crogl to solve a multi-million-dollar fraud use case. And I said, but we didn't build a fraud detection product. He says, no, you are the only product in my enterprise, because you have this semantic knowledge graph that connects all the different data lakes together, and the analyst doesn't have to remember everything, that this analyst had an idea. And they were able to express it, and then Crogl was able to articulate it in the machine language that needed to be articulated and have a really positive outcome. And I said, well, did you document it? And he said, well, we didn't have to, because as Crogl did the work, it documented. Oh. So now they can argue over together as colleagues, so in terms of what's happening. So I think that's the ultimate satisfaction. And because when I was an analyst, I got into this security industry because I sort of have this guardian mentality. I want to help people. And every security practitioner that I've met, they want to help people, they want to contribute. So it's this sort of thing that's enabling them to exercise their intuition and be able to contribute.
Well, before I let you go, let's go back up to the 50,000 foot view here. As you're walking around here at RSAC, what gives you hope? What are you optimistic about? What are the positive things you're seeing from this industry?
Well, first, I see still a lot of interaction, a committed community that is yet at another inflection point. Like we have the mobile inflection point, the high-speed networks inflection, big data inflection point. We're at this AI inflection point. And this community has always been ready to take on the unknown. And there's so many people that have had so many conversations in meetups and on panels and different discussions. The community is ready to work and to look forward, both from the perspective of what will AI be used for to help protect, but also what will AI be used for to bring together a new environment and a new ecosystem for us. So that is very energizing for me, and I see that that's very energizing to a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. Well, Monzy Merza is CEO and co-founder of Crogl. Monzy, thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's a pleasure talking to you again.
Yeah, take care.